Hey, Motorman here, and I'm going to be over at Destination Daytona this coming Friday. I'll be there between, I'd say, about 11 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Stop by and say hello. If you recognize me, you should recognize me. I'll have the Ride Like a Pro hat on, the Ride Like a Pro shirt, and I'll be holding this camera. So I'll see you Friday, Destination Daytona. And I'm at Newport Richie Harley Davidson, and they have a Low Rider S with the 117. That's the 2022 model. They've got a black one in stock right now, and I know that these bikes are hard to come by. So if you're in the market, they've got one. How long it's going to last, I don't know. They got it in yesterday, and I'm going to take it for a ride. Now I rode down here on my 2021 Low Rider S with the 114 motor, so I'd have a real seat of the pants comparison between the 117 and the 114. Is there a tremendous difference, slight difference, big difference? I'm going to find out. According to Harley specs, these 117s put out 103 horsepower, and I believe it's 126 foot-pounds of torque versus 83 and I think 105 or 110. So I'm going to take it out and I'll let you know. All right, sitting on the bike, the rear suspension is an inch taller than on the 2021, but I really don't notice any difference. Easy bike to flat foot, it's kind of narrow. And first thing you want to notice is the console here, no more gauges. They've moved the gauges up to right here where they should be. And you've got the clock right now is on, and it's blinking 12 o'clock. If you remember the old VCRs, they always blink 12 o'clock. You couldn't, no matter what, you set it, and an hour later it was blinking 12 o'clock again. In fact, all electronics, I think, have gone downhill from that time with the VCRs blinking 12 o'clock all the time. And let's see what we got here. We press that. We got our RPMs. Miles. 25 on this bike. 11.4 miles, and I guess that's the trip odometer. Don't know what the R is. Anyway, let's take it for a ride. First thing I like to do is do a little maneuvering with the motorcycle. Since this has got a little bit more, I think it's in 1 degree extra of lean clearance, so 30 to 31 or 31 to 32, I'm not sure. It's not immediately apparent. 1 degree isn't a ton. Turn a couple of circles. I really don't want to scratch his floor pegs, but this is a very nimble motorcycle, very easy to handle. Feels very light, especially compared to the touring bikes, because I believe it's like 200 pounds lighter, and that means with this 117 motor it's going to be pretty damn fast. Now on my Low Rider S, I put forward controls because having my legs in this position, my knees up just about even with the tank, is not the most comfortable for any more than a few minutes, at least for me. Some people think it helps the bike's handling on winding mountain roads when you got the mid controls, but so what I'm saying is there are some drawbacks to me being 6'2". Now the salesman did tell me they hadn't PDI'd this bike yet, and the shifter is up way too high, and I believe he is correct. Getting my foot under there to shift or to put it in gear is a little tough. Now I'll tell you one thing I noticed right away. It feels like this is a softer ride, which makes sense because it's got an inch more travel. And an inch in travel, it does mean something. In addition to giving you more lean clearance. It gives you, from what I can tell so far, a little bit better ride, a little softer ride. Now of course the ride is adjustable. I think it goes from 1 to 10 or 1 to 12, and the higher you turn it up, the stiffer it's going to be. Man, that torque is amazing. I didn't realize I had it in second gear when I started off, and you could barely tell. And I'm going to try to get up here where there's a little bit less traffic and give it the business, as they say. Power does feel a little bit more immediate, and that's, you know, that's not horsepower you feel, that's torque. Fairly cool day here in Florida. It's about, I don't know, 65 degrees, but I can tell you this, generally the more power a motor makes, the more heat it's going to generate. I do notice on mine when I'm in traffic or stopped at a light and it's warm out, yeah, you could feel the heat from the motor. There's no shield like you have on the touring bikes. Oh yeah, this bike flies. I think it's 675 pounds and 103 horsepower. Now I'm not sure how they rate that, if that's to the rear wheel. I think it is to the rear wheel, because 114 is about 85 to 90 horsepower to the rear wheel, depending on what dynometer you're on, I guess, because I've seen several of them in stock form produce anywhere from 83 to 95 horsepower for a 114 motor stock. I noticed the same thing on this bike as on my bike when I first got it, my Low Rider S. The rear brake doesn't seem to do anything. But that's because they generally, when they assemble these bikes, for some odd reason, they point the rear brake too far down. So you got very little to no leverage. I adjusted mine, and it's a night and day difference. On mine, I've got the Memphis Shades Warrior fairing, so there's a lot less wind noise. But I really like the looks of the bike when it's completely naked. Lots of power, lots of torque. And at this weight, very easy motorcycle to handle. This guy needs both parts of the road. That's all right. He's not aware that two solid objects can't be in the same space at the same time. Try braking a little bit around this corner. Motor is just as smooth as the 114. Generally what you find when you make a motor bigger, It's not quite as smooth, but I noticed no difference between my bike and this one. All these Low Rider S's turn in really nice. They're the best handling of the Softails, with the possible exception of the Fat Bob. I believe that this bike and the Fat Bob have the same rake and trail and wheelbase, but for some reason the Fat Bob feels like the front wheel is closer to you, more like a dirt bike style. But I guess to really find those limits, you'd have to push these bikes pretty far, which you can't do on public roads, especially when you got traffic like this. We still have a lot of what we call snowbirds here in Florida. Usually Easter Sunday, they all start heading back, and traffic drops down quite a bit. Brakes are powerful with that 2-disc up front. This feels like it wants to pull that front wheel up. Bends into these curves beautifully. The good thing about the 2022 model, along with that 117 motor, is they only raised the price about 500 bucks. Which if you've got a 114 and you want to bring it up with the Screaming Eagle kit to 117, I'm pretty sure it's going to run around $2,000. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's about what it's going to cost. So, and if you needed that extra inch of travel to tear up the canyons, you're going to have to get a shock absorber, taller shock in the rear, and that's I think they're around 600 bucks. Yep, it's definitely more responsive than the 114. I mean, it's not a world of difference, but I could tell the difference because I just got off my bike and got on this one. The styling of this motorcycle is typical Harley Davidson. In fact, it's the profile of this bike is what many people consider or look at and say, that's a Harley Davidson. There's been a lot of people trying to copy it. First the Japanese manufacturers, and they didn't do a great job to make this style bike, usually because the rear fender would sit up 6 inches above the rear tire, which made the motorcycles look very awkward. But you know, they were half the price, so you had to give up something. So in conclusion, I gotta say, Harley's got another winner with the Low Rider S for 2022 with the bigger motor. The gauges where you can see them. That badass looking big sucker air cleaner sticking out the side of the motorcycle. It's a fun bike to ride. It handles beautifully for a heavyweight cruiser. And I don't think you can find anything else that's as much fun and looks as good for the money. They've only bumped it 500 bucks in price. That's pretty good for Harley Davidson with what they're giving you extra over the previous year models. It is now the most powerful or the biggest motor they ever put in a Low Rider S, and that includes the Dyna models that had the Screaming Eagle motor. Smoother, better handling than those models, and overall it's a winner.